Hi, folks. This is Morpheus, Ravenna. Um, I am here today to share a little reading from my forthcoming book, which is called The Magic of the Otherworld, Modern Sorcery from the Wellspring of Celtic Traditions. Yeah, I hope you enjoy. This is going to be a section from the chapter on working with spirits in sorcery. And this section is called Weapon Sorcery and Enspirited Objects. Um, I hope you enjoy. It is not surprising to find within these animist cultures a strong interest in enspirited objects. The Irish literature has a great fondness in particular for warrior gear inspirited by spells or inhabited by demons. Even where weapons are not explicitly described as inspirited, they are often named, which is an indicator of being seen to contain a being with personhood. There is also some material evidence that aligns with the practices described in the literature. Many passages in the literature describe spirits or demons residing in weapons and armor, such as this from the Táinbó Cúailnge. Quote, "Such was the closeness of their encounter that sprites and goblins and spirits of the glen and demons of the air screamed from the rims of their shields and from the hilts of their swords and from the butt ends of their spears." End quote. The beings seem to be not just present around the warriors in this story, but specifically inhabiting the weapons and armor. This reflects a belief that weapons, armor, and other gear could be inhabited by spirits, and that those spirits involved themselves in the work of the weapon or the events taking place around those who carried them. In the example, the particular type of spirits that are inhabiting these arms are spirits of the battlefield, showing a functional relationship guiding the type or family of spirits understood to belong to such armaments or chosen to inhabit them. Artifacts from across the Celtic cultures, particularly the exquisite metalwork for which the Celtic peoples are so famous, show that it was common to adorn valuable items with figures. Pieces of armor from early Celtic cultures, such as helmets and shields, are often found with animal forms sculpted on them: ravens, eagles, boars, etc. The great carnices, or war horns, were often fashioned with the heads of boars, serpents, or wolves. And of course, there are many examples of the anthropomorphic sword type from the Iron Age. Swords whose hilts were sculpted to look like little persons, more or less stylized to show simple arms and legs, and often also a face with human features. Other valuable items not specifically related to violence were also adorned with animal or anthropomorphic features, such as faces on the handles and grips of cauldrons and drinking vessels. Many archaeologists have interpreted these to indicate such an animistic belief in spirits inhabiting objects. The Irish literature makes it clear that this is not just a fanciful interpretation on the part of modern archaeology, because the belief in spirits inhabiting objects is made explicit in the texts. It also makes clear that this is not simply the generalized animism of believing that everything is alive. There appears to be a ritual practice by which objects were intentionally inspirited. Fragments of this ritual culture of object sorcery are preserved in various manuscripts and tales, and when they are pieced together, a fairly clear picture of a system of spirit work emerges. A passage from the Second Battle of Moytura presents the first major piece of the picture. After the battle is over, the Tuatha Dé Danann recover an inspirited sword, and it offers a description of how such a relationship might work. Quote, "Now in that battle Ogma the champion found Orna the sword of Tethra, king of the Fovera. Ogma unsheathed the sword and cleaned it. Then the sword told what had been done by it, because it was the habit of swords at that time to recount the deeds that had been done by them whenever they were unsheathed. And for that reason swords are entitled to the tribute of cleaning after they have been unsheathed. Moreover, spells have been kept in swords from that time on. Now the reason why demons used to speak from weapons then is that weapons used to be worshipped by men and were among the sureties of that time." End quote. There are several valuable bits of information presented here. First, the sword has a name and is presented as a person. This is the first clue that there is a spirit in the weapon. It also relates that spells have been kept in swords, and that the reason why, quote, demons used to speak, end quote, from them is that they were worshipped. This seems to indicate a ritual or spell whereby the weapon has been inspirited, and that it is from this point the spirit can communicate with its holder. This ritual seems to include worship of the spirit, and it seems likely that it included some kind of spell of speech or opening of the mouth, and that the weapon would also be given its name. This passage also indicates that the relationship between weapon spirit and holder was a contractual one, engendering a duty to offer it tribute by cleaning it whenever it is unsheathed. In other words, this is an ongoing and reciprocal agreement which is renewed by veneration and the tribute to which the sword is entitled. In exchange, the sword's spirit offers oracular knowledge through its recitation of the deeds done by it in battle. Other passages of literature expand on this concept of tribute owed and offered to inspirited weapons. Offerings are referenced in some cases. Several instances describe spears that will move of their own power and cut people if they have not given it offerings. The spear of Melodron Macdimachroan is one such weapon. Quote, "Everyone who did not leave anything with it, it would leap among them and make a slaughter of them." End quote. The implication is that a tribute of blood is required to be fed to the spear, and in the absence of this being given, it is taken. Elsewhere, in the destruction of Da Deraga's hostel, there is a reference to some type of poisonous fluid used with a spear called the luin, either as a substitute offering for blood or simply to quench it from catching fire. Quote, "A cauldron full of poison is needed to quench it when a deed of manslaying is expected. Unless this come to the lance, it flames on its haft and will go through its bearer or the master of the palace wherein it is." End quote. The weapon spirit's ability of oracular speech is also highlighted in many of these passages. In some instances, part of the tribute owed to it is the holder's listening to a sword's recitation of deeds done with it. In that first passage quoted, it was said that the reason why demons used to speak from weapons then is that weapons used to be worshipped by men and were among the sureties of that time. That is to say, an inspirited weapon could serve as a surety, a guarantee of truth. It was understood to be a keeper of truth by observing deeds and revealing them through its oracular speech. This served as a check on boasts made by warriors about their deeds. In the tale of the wasting sickness of Cuchulainn, a truth ritual is described as part of the annual Samhain feast. Quote, "They laid their swords over their thighs when they declared the strifes, and their own swords used to turn against them when the strife that they declared was false. Nor was this to be wondered at, for at that time it was customary for demon beings to scream from the weapons of men, so that for this cause their weapons might be the more able to guard them." End quote. In other words, when someone had carried a sword in battle, that sword's indwelling spirit knew the truth of their deeds. When those deeds were declared for the community they served, that declaration was made with the sword unsheathed and listening. If the warrior misrepresented their actions, the weapon spirit would know and could speak out against them. This is the basis for the custom of swearing oaths on swords as well. The weapon spirit was understood to physically enforce truthfulness and fidelity to oaths, as well as speaking out about them. Their own swords used to turn against them when the strife that they declared was false. The weapon served as a guarantor of fidelity because its indwelling spirit knew what was said and done, and if the warrior had been false, the next time they carried that weapon into a battle, it would turn against them. This could serve as a very serious check on behavior for warriors who relied on their gear to safeguard their survival in the field. All of this serves to emphasize that the spirits were understood to have agency and a will of their own, and while they did serve the owner of the weapon, that service was contractual and earned through reciprocal obligations, not simply a matter of command. These examples center on weapon sorcery and highlight the sorts of battle spirits that would be inspirited into weapons and war gear. However, their example can be extrapolated to see that other kinds of gear can enshrine any number of other types of spirits appropriate to their particular function. I have seen hospitality and hearth-keeping spirits enshrined into cauldrons and fire tools, spirits of poetry and inspiration and knowledge enshrined into musical instruments, and many more. In an animistic practice, all your beloved tools can be inspirited so that they become not just instruments, but gateways to expansive spirit alliances. So as part of your Sorcerer's Toolkit, I'd like to offer a ritual template for inspiriting objects. Since the sword is a highly traditional type, this example is written as for inspiriting a sword, but you can easily adapt this practice for many sorts of objects. Before beginning a ritual to inspirit an object, it's important to lay the groundwork by building up a relationship with the spirit who you hope to install into their weapon. If you're new to working with this particular spirit, consider spending some time with the toolkit for building spirit alliances presented earlier in this chapter. As part of this relationship building, you should spend time in communion with them and also employ divination to determine what the shape of your agreements may be and any tributes that may be needed as part of your alliance. Remember, tributes aren't necessarily always going to be a physical offering or libation. Just as often, they might be actions that you commit to doing in how you use the inspirited object. These actions in tribute both honor the spirit and help to sustain and enhance its presence in the object. For this ritual, you should prepare the following: cleansing tools such as blessing water or incense, a candle, the weapon to be inspirited, a means of inscribing the weapon such as a paint pen or etching pen, and offerings that appeal to the spirit or have been requested, such as spirits or a blade oil. First, cleanse your tools, yourself, and the space you'll be working in by sprinkling with blessing water or fumigating with sacred smoke. Next, awaken the blade. You can refer back to the section on working with iron and protection magic for a refresher on how to awaken a blade. Warm your blade in the flame of your candle to waken it. If you're inspiriting an object that can't be put in fire, you can warm it by rubbing it with your own hands. When it's warm, bring the weapon close and speak so that your breath enters the fabric of the warm metal as you speak to awaken it and instruct it to receive the spirit that you're enshrining in it. You can use your own words or follow this template. Awake, blade, waken and hear me. You shall be a shrine for the spirit's name and receive their spirit. Your body shall be their body. Their tributes shall be received through you. Next, inscribe and name the weapon. Take the pen tool and inscribe the spirit's name on the weapon, saying, I name you. You are the body of your spirit's name. If the spirit has a sigil, you can inscribe that also. Next, lay the spell of speech. Say, you are the voice of the spirit's name. For spirits may speak from weapons when weapons are worshipped by us. Speak, speak, speak. I lay the power of speech in this blade. May you speak truth and fulfill this bond. Next, make the tributes and offerings. Speak any commitments you may be making in the bond you're making with the spirit. What tributes it may be entitled to, if any have been asked of you. Seal the bond with an offering and touch the offering to the blade. Even if your tribute to the spirit going forward will be non-physical, it's helpful in this ritual to feed the blade directly. For a metal object such as a weapon, anointing with blade oil is a good offering, or you can anoint it with a few drops of a liquid offering. So I hope you've enjoyed this little reading from my book. This book will be out summer 2023 from Llewellyn Publishing. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Take care.